campaigns as a close follower of politics. So let's start with you, Lincoln.
Yeah, thank you, Frank. I'm glad you started with me because typically I've been on, I cannot know how many panels or TV shows since Trump became president. And invariably what happens is the person before me weaves out some horrible negative scenario. And I have to begin by saying, I'm not quite as optimistic as the person who spoke before me. I tell my students that when someone says this isn't so bad compared to the late 1960s, that's a generational cri de coeur. It's the political equivalent of saying, hey man, you should have been at Woodstock, which is my way of saying things are really bad right now. And I should also say that I'm not a baseball writer. I'm a political scientist. I teach American politics. I've worked in American politics. I spend most of my time writing, reading, and speaking about this stuff and teaching about this. So this has really been on my mind a lot. And so I'm going to try to summarize very quickly some of my main thoughts. I want to begin by telling you what I think each one of us needs to be thinking about over the next several weeks, which is Michelle Obama, most notably at the convention, but others have stressed, make a voting plan. And I think that's obvious. You know, you got to vote in this thing, no matter where you live, even if you live in a safe state. The telling a story of Trump getting drubbed is going to be essential for him getting out of office. But also make a democracy plan. As we get into the end of this week, figure out where the demonstrations, if you're young and healthy enough to go out, right, where the demonstrations will be in your community to ensure that Trump leaves after he loses. Make sure that you have enough PPE to go to those demonstrations, that you have power bars, that you have, canteens or water bottles or something like that. Be prepared. If you're not able to go out, think about maybe having enough food for a few days, right? This election was never going to end on January 20th with whoever your Democratic candidate was back in 2017 having their hand on the Bible and Donald Trump and Melania smiling gracefully. It was never going to end there, and it still isn't. In February of 2017, when I wrote my first piece about Trump not leaving if he loses, I was told I was nuts. Now it's become conventional wisdom. This is where we are, and we have to recognize that. It was never going to end smoothly. And we have to think about what we're going to do to ensure that he leaves office when he loses. We spent a lot of time talking about the threat of it happening, now that we've all kind of processed that. We are told from too many people who also told us not to worry about this possibility, that the lawyers will save us, the courts will do this. Lawyers will not save us. We're going to have a legal strategy, but we're going to have a democracy and a mobilization strategy. I think I've said this, maybe not in this seminar, but the Belarusian election was August 9th, and they're still trying to get Lukashenko out of there, right? So we have to be prepared for a long, long struggle. I want to also, but there's something more here that I think is kind of gnawing at me, which is this. This election, in fact, the whole Trump presidency has highlighted the tension between the Constitution and what we would understand to be democracy, and highlighted the notion that the United States can either live according to its Constitution or it can try to be a democracy, but it can really no longer do both. And we see this week, where a president elected by a minority of the people from a political party that no longer even tries to get the majority in a general election because it knows it can't, will appoint someone to the third branch of the legislature, which is now the Supreme Court, who will be confirmed by people representing a minority of the American people. That is where the Constitution has gotten us, right? If you are an activist, you'll hear over and over from the right that we're the ones with the guns, right? These militia groups, because of a clause in our Constitution, which I don't think is compatible with democracy at all, the Second Amendment, but is also always only applied to white people, right? So this tension is really profound, and it is coming to a head, frankly, in the next few weeks. And we have to be prepared, but we also intellectually have to be open to a lot of things happening. And I have with me a baseball, since this is a baseball crowd. I always try to make baseball metaphors. I always try not to make baseball metaphors because I'll bore people. And I was on, I think, an independent Russian channel, and I started to make, and I realized I had to make a soccer metaphor. And then I realized I don't know anything about soccer, so I couldn't. But I'm going to make a baseball metaphor. I want you to imagine that your team is at bat, and your player, like if you're Craig, it's Mookie Betts or someone, is up, right? And they hit the ball, and let's say my iPad here, it's orange, I don't know why, and they hit the ball, and if it goes over the fence, it's a home run and you're happy. And if it gets caught, it's an out, right? And now for the purpose of this is the election. If Donald Trump, if it here doesn't make it to the fence, that's Donald Trump catching it, that's an out, and that's the consolidation of a semi-authoritarian regime, right? But the ball's not going to go over the fence. A Joe Biden victory is not the ball going over the fence and us getting democracy. Stop me if this is too weird of a metaphor. The Biden victory is the ball being up here somewhere where we're not sure. It might go over the fence, be a home run, and it might get caught by the outfielder for the other team. A Biden victory preserves the possibility of moving the United States meaningfully towards democracy in the coming years, but it doesn't guarantee it, and it doesn't mean it's happened. Which is not to say you shouldn't vote and you shouldn't vote for Biden, right? There are two choices here. You're either on Team MAGA or voting for Biden. There's no middle ground here. As to borrow a phrase from Mark Maron, the Dodgers and the Rays are in the World Series now. You can't go out there and root for the Indians or the Astros or something, right? I mean, the game has changed. And I want to make one last point. I believe, and typically, if we were in a typical election, what we'd be thinking about is who's going to win, right? And who's going to win control of the Senate? The House isn't being contested, and who's going to win the White House? And that's what we'd be thinking about, And we spend a lot of time on that horse race. And when we do it, we sometimes do it to the detriment of understanding what's really going on. Because I believe that the range of possible outcomes is much greater here than we're really thinking. And I'm just going to give you a couple examples. And if I were Nate Silver, I would make a complicated mathematical model, make sure it aligned with my opinion, and then put a number on it. Instead, I'm just going to pick a number that seems about right. There is a 1% chance. That means a 99% chance that it doesn't happen, but a 1% chance that we have a Tiananmen Square style massacre in the United States in the next month. Now, that's a low number. You wouldn't take that bet. But in previous years, a week or so before the election, you'd say it's a 1 in 10,000, not 1 in 100. There's a 1 in 100 chance that Donald Trump is fleeing the White House for the Russian embassy at some time in the next month. Again, 99% chance that it doesn't happen. And we can quibble with these numbers. I'm pulling them out of my head. I don't know. But I just want to think about the breadth of the possibilities. There is a real possibility, much greater, maybe 30%, that 2 or 3 weeks from now, the outcome of this election is being disputed, largely nonviolently, but in some cases with guns, on the American streets. There's a non-zero possibility that Donald Trump, and Tove will speak to some of these issues better than I will, or more than I will, because I won't. I'll just make her do it, ask her to do it, through voter suppression, that Donald Trump just steals this election, just bullies and cheats his way to the election, and that we end up with a second illegitimate Trump term. And there's a chance that we have a meaningful democratic breakthrough. Because when you push and push and push on a system like this, you sometimes get that breakthrough. So I'm going to end there because I don't want to talk forever. You can find me talking about all this stuff in other places, but maybe that gives us something to kind of think about as we move to the next questions.